A very good morning to Dr. Haslinda and my friend. Today, my group circle will present an article with the title of Examining the Adoption of Assisted Audit Tools and Techniques. So in our presentation, we will divide into 8 sections. So for the first part is about introduction and motivation. So what is CAATTS? It is referred to Computer-Assisted Audit Tools and Technique. It is a computer-based system that used by the auditor to help them to carry out their job, which that help them during when they are carrying out their procedure, these computer tools can help them to improve their effectiveness and efficiency in collect the audit evidence, which that the information that contained in an entity information system. And there are various types of CADs that used by the auditor. Here is the example of the CADs that used by the auditor. For the first one, the electronic working paper, usually we refer as a spreadsheet or the Excel that used by the auditor that can use to analyze and planning for the data they collected from their client. And they can also have some tools for CADs is designed for fraud detection. And the most common one that the auditor use no matter is internal auditor or external auditor is general audit software. We call it as GAS. That is a software that have contained a series of computer programs that can help the auditor to read the computer file. They can select the desired file contained in the computer and perform the repetitive calculation, and also have some of the CADs that have designed a program to help the auditors to be print the desired report in the auditor specific format. So the main objective in this paper is to examine the factors that can lead the successful GAS adoption in the case chosen, which the company have become the successful adopter in this technology. But also there are 4 key contributions that will be focused. For the first one, they were testing of the current IT adoption theory and explaining a link with how they can be successful applying the GAS for the selected internal audit setting. And in this paper, we will focus on the internal audit setting of the company. So second one is an academic contribution to have the better understanding of GAS used in UK by the internal auditor, because mostly of the company that we chosen in the case is based on UK. So we will use the professional review, academic review, and to help us to better understanding what the theory can be used in GAS, and we will examine how they can relate it for the company that we chosen in this paper. Number 3 is that we will offer the specific outcome that can support the future guidance by the professional body adoption decision for the use of GAS in internal audit domains. And lastly is provision of the theoretical foundation for the development of a flexible model in order that can support the successful implementation of GAS in the internal audit setting. So for the next section, which is second section, is we will discuss on the literature review. For the first part is academic review. For the first is the paper that be conducted by the researcher Kim in 2009 that is focused on the technology. And the technology model is the technology acceptance model, which is called TAM. It is the model that is a precursor model of UTAUT. UTAUT is a model of unified technology. It's a unified theory of acceptance and use of technology. And the basic of the TAM that have included variety of factors, but we can split in three main factors: is organization factor, social factor, and individual factor. And then there also will be explaining the dimension of the system usage, perceive the usefulness, and the aids of the use of the model. And they will report they also have link with this model link with the impact of the organization and the individual factor. So in short, that TAM is the model that deal with the prediction and the accessibility of the information system, and it will be predict is a tool used to predict the acceptance of the user, and they also help to identify the modification which will brought the system to be accepted by the user. And from this report, they also found out that the lack of the social adoption that is being used in this model, in use in this paper. So next is the curtis and panels and Gonzalez. Two of this study is the focus of the UTAUT. For the first one, they found out that there if the paper is focused that for the external auditor part, and they will use this model to test that how the acceptancy of the external auditor in of the use of the audit software. So for the Godzilla, from the study of the cuties and panels, they found out that this model should be a valid model to be studied in the audit technology. And in UTAUT, they have their main focus on four individual model, which is the effort expectancy, social influence, performance expectancy, and facilitating conditions. So for another study of Gonzalez, they adopt a continuous auditing, and they found that this model, the main is focus of the substantial amount of variance in attention that focus in internal auditor. But the result shows that for that model, they only found out that the expectancy, effort expectancy, and social influence is very important in the perspective of internal auditor in using the continuous auditing, while the performance expectancy and facilitating condition is not supported and not being focused in for the perspective of internal auditor. There is a survey conducted by IAA based on the CAT's usage. They found out that the lack of the software available in the market is a key reason that the internal auditor did not use CATs. Besides that, the cost of implement the CATs also relatively high, so they become one of the reasons that lack of the usage of CAT by the internal auditor. But last, we also find out that 40% of the respondents are willing to adopt this CAT if they find out the package that really meet their needs. So next, my friend will continue with next section.
Good day to Totter and my fellow friends. My name is Lee Sujin. So next, I'm going to talk about the theoretical framework to study the motivations for CAATT's adoptions. So in this paper, they are using the Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of Technology, UTAUT, which is a unified model of IT acceptance by individuals and was developed by Venkatesh et al. In 2003. So after review and examine field models, Venkatesh demonstrated that the model can have four major constructs, which is significant to adoption intention. So the first one is performance expectancy, which relates to the individual's belief that using the system can help them to attain gains in task performance. And next is the effort expectancy, is the degree of ease the adopter associated with the use of the system. Third one, social influence, is the degree of an individual perceives that the importance others believe that he or she should use the new technology. So for example, a professional body or their organization. And the fourth one, facilitating conditions, is related to an individual's belief that the technical infrastructure exists in their organization to support them to use the technology. So these four main constructs will be influenced by four key modulators, which are gender, age, voluntariness, and experience. So this figure is the theoretical view from UTAUT. These four are the construct and these four are the modulators. So for the PE will be influenced by gender and age. For the EE will be influenced by gender, age, and experience. While for the SI will be influenced by only experience. For the SC will be influenced by all modulators, which are gender, age, experience, and voluntariness to use. So next, construct examine in this study. So in these sessions, the sessions explore each of the constructs from UTAUT that are proposed for testing in this study. So the first one, performance expectancy. Auditing standards and guidelines suggest that the usage of technology tools could help to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of an internal auditor's work. So by adopting the CAATTs, the internal auditor can perform various functions. So for example, to test the program control, to improve the efficiency of audit testing, or to facilitate the risk assessment. So CATTs are argued to be an important tool for internal auditors in their audit work performance. Next, effort expectancy. There is a direct effect of perceived ease of use via effort expectancy or behavioral intention. So the more easier to use the CATT, so the higher chance that the internal auditors will adopt the CATT. According to the Peter et al. 2003 found that the perception of ease of use can be shifted with training. So in this study, the effect of ease of use and training on CATT's adoptions by internal auditors is examined in seeking confirmations of their applicability to an internal auditor's adoption decision. And next, facilitating conditions, which relate to the degree in which the infrastructure provided by organizations and external environment is perceived to influence the motivations to adopt. So this construct will affect the decisions to adopt a CAATT, for example, whether they have the support from vendors or software providers or senior management in their organization. Next is the social influence. This study seeks to understand if image and normative belief will have any influence toward an intentions to adopt CAATTs. So the decisions whether to adopt CAATTs or not may be influenced by head of internal audit in an organization or their professional body. Next, moderators. There are 4 moderators I have mentioned just now. So in testing UTAUT, Megatech et al. Found that the social influence construct may be significant were analyzed with the inclusions of the moderating variables. So for example, social influence was found significant in mandatory adoptions in UTAUT. So an analysis of the impact of voluntariness for this particular construct is conducted. Next is the experience is also found in development and testing of UTAUT to have a moderating impact on effort expectancy and facilitating conditions. So refer to the Venkatech and experience adopted. The facilitating conditions tended to be more significant compared to the effort expectancy. The moderator of age and gender are not separately addressed in this study due to small sample size because there are only 10 organizations were selected and interviewed in this study. The next is research questions. The key questions categorized arising from the adoption decisions making process. So basically is when, why, and how. When and why do internal auditors decide to use CAATTs in their audit process, and how do internal auditors evaluate the appropriateness and adequacy of staff skill? So next is the data analysis and collections. In this study, they are using the qualitative-based interview to collect the data. So this is the general summary of interviewee profile. There are 10 of the organizations were selected, and 8 of them are from UK, 2 of them are from Malaysia. They also represent different kind of industry to enable some spread of coverage of CAATT's usage to be included. So for example, they have insurance or fund managers, central government, and financial. So for the research finding and others, my friends will continue explain it.
Good morning everyone, my name is Tanjit, one metric number 255428. Now I'm going to continue with our group presentations regarding the research findings of the article studied. First, let's start with the performance expectancy. Performance expectancy is the degree of belief how well will the adoptions of GAS, general audited software, in increasing the job efficiency of internal auditors. Performance expectancy is the main motivation for GAS adoption in 6 out of the 10 cases as GAS enhance their job efficiency and internal auditors able to automate part of the audit process to improve overall performance. The adoption of GAS, especially in ACL, resulted in great performance, like the organization in case 6, which has used GAS ACL for more than 10 years because they believe that the audit software would improve the efficiency of the audit team. ACL is used in fraud investigations by comparing housing benefit data with payroll data. The results were good as they become significantly more effective in closing exception reports. ACL was also used for fraud investigations, additional data matching task exceptions reporting, audit, sampling, data extraction, and others. And for case 6 and 9, in the growing electronic processing environment, gas become indispensable for them. And now let's continue with the second construct, which is the facilitating conditions. There are two factors in these constructs, which are auditor's skill and knowledge and external facilitating conditions. For an organization in making decisions for the adoption of gas, it is very crucial that to know someone who is able to use the tools and maximize its value. In the 7 out of the 10 cases, the auditors interviewed have either previous experience or at least a basic knowledge about the usage of gas prior to the decision to adopt gas. And as the moderator factors, the experience is also very significant in this construct on the successful adoption gas decisions. 3 cases cited the availability of targeted training as encouraging them to adopt gas. And some organizations also made a pre-employment criteria for newly recruited auditors. It means that the organizations required the candidates to have at least a basic knowledge about the gas. Okay, the second is the external facilitating conditions. Externalities in the context of internal auditors or internal audit environments includes the external auditors, the regulatory bodies such as the tax authorities, professional bodies influencing the profession, company boards, audit committees, and operating department in the organizations. In case 9, CAT's adoptions occur because the data can be more easily extracted for external auditor users or as a key stakeholder of the management of this organization. Data. CATS was initially used to perform data interrogations and data extractions on behalf of external auditor and do their specifications. CATS was then furthered to do data analysis for internal audit purpose and such of operational business requirements. The effective use of CATS able to meet the data requirements of external parties. The effect of external facilitative factors because of regulatory influence, as in the case, it was found that a number of local authorities in the UK are using gas due to the external motivating factors. The interview explained that those authorities were audited by UK's Audit Commissions, which the UK Audit Commissions itself is an extensive user of gas and encouraged them to do so. And next, discuss about the lack of support for social influence and effort expectancy. The social influence. Social influence is not always significant when the adoption of gas is in voluntary status rather than mandatory setting. The domain of these studies, gas is voluntary usage, even though the professional standards prescribe that gas should be ideally be used by the internal auditors to ensure they deliver due professional care. And some pressures appear to be exerted in some industry by regulatory oversight processes. However, because of lacking enforcement and monitoring of compliance of this proposal of use, internal auditors are not practiced and make context-specific decisions on the adoptions. Adoption of gas should be made mandatory. The social influence contract play a role in influencing gas adoption as the UK local authority could be arguably be interpreted to implied. Therefore, voluntariness is seen to negatively influence the applicability of the construct to internal auditors' mission to adopt gas. And now let's continue with the fourth construct, effort expectancy. Effort expectancy is the effort expected by the internal auditors to learn about the new things. They are not found to be a key factor in influencing internal auditors' motivation to adopt gas, as no interviewee reported software ease of use, which is the effort expectancy, being the critical to their decision to use gas. This may be related to the nature of gas system being used and the fact these generic tools are well supported by training availability. Some studies also have been carried out on physicians' acceptance of the telemedicine technology, and the same results was obtained. A possible explanation for these findings which it explained that internal auditors are the professionals who work with specialized knowledge domain with high level of professional qualifications. Hence, effort expectancy is not a significant constraint because they are they have their professionalism in the current field. So in this case, rising of experience decreases any impact of effort expectancy on adoption of the decisions, which in other words, the moderating variable experience influence the significance of the effort expectancy in the adoptions. And next, let's move on to the conclusion, the contributions, and the research implications. First, let's talk about the conclusion. The conclusion is that this study is reducing the knowledge gap by examining the motivations that underlay successful adoption of gas. IT adoption theory is a useful tool to explain the motivations leading to successful gas adoption. And the constructs of UTAUT that we discuss in this paper is act as a guidance when proposing gas implementations, and it's likely to aid in successful adoption of gas. The factors distilled in the UTAT into performance expectancy and facilitating conditions were stated as importance and should be given to those aspects of business case for gas adoption in this domain. But the other two factors found in the UTAUT of social influence and effort expectancy were not as dominant as the previous two factors that we mentioned above, and it provides a limited exploration of moderating factors online in the UTAUT, which is the voluntariness and experience. So now let's move on. Let's discuss about the academic contribution. And as we discussed before, internal auditors are knowledge workers doing involuntary decisions domain. Therefore, the moderating variables which the voluntariness appears to negatively affect the significance of the social influence construct that is reported as important in other adoption domain. This means that, as we mentioned before, the internal auditors are professionals in their field. So, as related to the effort expectancy construct, the voluntariness is seen to be not so important to affect the significance of the social influence in the IT adoptions domains. However, also shows the important influence of moderating variables, which is experience on the significance of effort expectancy construct. There was no evidence that the moderating factor of experience had significant negative impact on facilitating conditions because when influence exists, this appears to be positive to the extent that the availability and effective use of the training on gas. Okay, now the implication for professional bodies and industry regulators. And first point, the social influence on IT adoption was found to be insignificant in other voluntary contexts, but significantly influenced the adoption of decisions within the mandatory settings. The decision to use gas in practice remains the prerogative of the auditors, and the existing standards by the IA, IASB, and the ICACA only provide recommendations and guidance on the use of gas. Subsequent work is needed to determine would the results still be the same in mandatory or with non-expert decision makers. Regulators may take the view that stronger encouragement is going to be necessary to ensure auditors develop wider use of gas. However, if you wish to mandating the use of certain approaches is quite difficult to achieve in practice because it is not commercially acceptable to the industry. Okay, next, last part, the limitations and future research. The findings may only be the limitations of this article is the findings may only be applicable to the economic and regulatory environment in the UK. This is because from the 10 cases of these articles, more than half of the cases were the cases from the UK. So the future work would be need to be done to extend the replicate this study to other geographical and economic environments to provide wider supports. Maybe a comparative study could also be conducted to identify the relationships between the different environmental influence to each of the factors identified in the model in these different contexts. Maybe we also should examine not only the successful adopter but also the limits successful adopters of the gas and exploring with non-adopters and why they aren't make a great use of CATs. This can create a fuller or the more comprehensive pictures of CATs adoptions. And that's all for our groups. Thank you. Hope that our group's presentations or the sharing regarding the adoptions of CATs is useful for you all. Thank you.